This is the Talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi Satsang, a time to listen, reflect, and deeply meditate. Know yourself and be always free and at peace. Welcome. I'm Richard Clarke, hosting this satsang. I'm reviewing and commenting on the book Talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi. Let me go now to his words on Talk 30. The disciple asks, how are we to conceive of supreme consciousness? And the Maharshi responds, as that which is. The disciple asks, should it be thought of as self-effulgent? And Maharshi says, it transcends light and darkness. An individual sees both. The self enlightens the individual to see light and darkness. The dialogue goes on with the disciple saying, should it be realized as I am not the body, nor the agent, nor the enjoyer, etc.? Maharshi says, why these thoughts? Do we now think that we are men, etc.? By not thinking so, do we cease to be men? The disciple says, should one realize it then by the scriptural texts such as, there are no differences here? The Maharshi says, why even that? The disciple says, if we think I am the real, will it do? And Maharshi says, all thoughts are inconsistent with realization. The correct state is to exclude thoughts of ourselves and all other thoughts. Thought is one thing, and realization is quite another. Then the disciple says, I have my professional work, and yet I want to be in perpetual dhyana. Will they conflict with each other? And the Maharshi says, there will be no conflict. As you practice both and develop your powers, you'll be able to attend to both. You will begin to look on business as a dream. Says the Bhagavad Gita, that which is the night of all beings, for the disciplined man is the time of waking. When no other beings are wakened, then it is night for the sage who seeth. Now, my comments. The dialogue starts with the question, how should we think about Brahman, the vast absolute? And Ramana says simply, as that which is. That is to say, as everything. Is that big enough for you? All-encompassing enough? Remember, this includes you. Do you exist? Then you are Brahman, and Brahman is you. Then a question, should we think of it as self-effulgent? And Ramana says, the self enlightens the individual to see light and darkness. The self, consciousness itself, provides the light of awareness that enables our mind to see, to be aware of all that it sees. This consciousness is the light of the light, the eye of the eye, the knower of the known. Without the consciousness, there is nothing. It is more than shining with its own light, self-effulgent. It is that which lights up everything, the awareness by which everything, even darkness, is seen. Ramana is then asked about thought and the affirmation, I am not the body, and so forth. Ramana says that thought does not alter who you take yourself to be. A thought does not change who you are, does not change your existence, does not change the fact of awareness. It is not thought that is needed, but realization. Realization is deeper than thought. When you realize, you just know from deep within. You know, like you know that you exist without senses or thought, direct, immediate knowledge of yourself. Right now, you exist and you know that you exist. What is this knowledge? Is it mental or is it deeper? Ramana goes on to say, all thoughts are inconsistent with realization. The correct state is to exclude thoughts of ourselves and all other thoughts. Thought is one thing, and realization is quite another. So, you're not going to get realization by thinking about it. You get it by knowing it as yourself, by being it. This is the knowledge that comes naturally from within, not the knowledge of things that comes from the mind. Knowing and being are the same. They are one thing, not two separate things. Knowing is being. Being is knowing. Finally, the questioner asks about realization and work, asking if they're incompatible. Ramana puts this idea aside, saying there will be no conflict. As you practice both and develop your powers, you'll be able to attend to both. What does it matter what we do with our bodies? Is not the consciousness that is the self always there? Realization comes from first noticing, then diving into the self, the consciousness that is always within you. This can happen in an instant. It can happen after years of practice, but it happens. Prior to realization, continue to practice and to find ways to deepen your practice. Being is knowing. So always notice that within you, which is always there, always exists, is always present, is always knowing, is always silent. And with continued practice and grace, you know your knowing is being. The self-knowing that Ramana says it will be right in the end. So keep up the practice. As long as there is a separate you remaining to do the practice, then keep it up. Now we'll listen to my teacher, Nome, with a discourse, knowledge of being.
If you know your very being, then you know reality as it is. And what you know, you are. Sri Bhagavan has said, "What is the use of knowing everything else without knowing oneself?" This is because without knowledge of the self, what is the supposed knowledge of something else is but the faint reflections of whatever definition is inadvertently held as one's own. So, for example, if due to lack of inquiry to know one's true nature, one feels that he is a body, he will think that he knows a corresponding objective realm of experience or world. But all that is but the illusory play of his own consciousness. Sri Bhagavan further said that upon knowing the self, what else is there more to be known? Such a one sees nothing different than the self. How this could be so is enigmatic, only as long as misidentifications are assumed to be valid. From the fundamental misidentification of existing as an individual, an I notion, as he calls it, to every other definition appended to that I. But seek deeply within yourself. Who am I? What does your real being consist of? It cannot be anything objective. So whatever is known, from subtle thought down to sensation, cannot possibly be a definition for yourself. By abandoning the tendency to misidentify with such limited definitions, your real nature, which is infinite and eternal, becomes self-evident. If only the objectifying outlook is abandoned, and one actually inquires into the meaning of I, your real being will be known in its own self-effulgence, and that blissfully so. Inwardly trace the nature of your own existence. If you want to know reality, if you want to know Brahman, if you want to know God, find out the nature of your own existence. Otherwise, you will treat these, Brahman, God, even the Supreme Self, Paramatman, as if it were something else. But the Maharshi said, what else is there to be known? The very idea of otherness, attributed to the Absolute, is based on the false assumption of oneself being an individual to be a thinker, an experiencer, an embodied being, and so forth and so on. Trace your existence. It's not a body. It's not born when the body commences. It doesn't die when the body dies. It's not an object of sense perception. Trace your existence. It's not a thought. It's not a collection of thought. It's not a current of thought. It is not any kind of mental mode or state whatsoever. It's not waking, it's not dreaming, it's not in deep sleep, but transcends all these. Unborn, imperishable, without condition, free of every state, unformed, undivided, without difference and with nothing other than it. Such is your real being. If you suppose yourself to be individualized, inquire into the very nature of that individualized existence, and no individuality will be found. Where the ego thus subsides, real being shines. Unobscured, it shines for itself. There is no other. There is no other existence. There is no other knower. Being. It is not an object. It is not an activity. It is not something done with body, speech, or mind. It is not to be acquired anew, but rather is ever existent. There is no one distinct from that being, Brahman, to be ignorant of it, or to say, I know it. For this self-knowledge, simply make your vision non-objective, and deeply inquiring, who am I? The reality comprehends itself. You are that. There is no other. Discern this for yourself, inquiring deeply, who am I?
Now let's take a little time and inquire ourselves. Just sit and take a moment and a deep breath in and out. And notice that you exist. You exist, and you know that you exist. Now, investigate within yourself. Inquire, what exists within you? What is the always real existence? Can you be a thought? Thoughts are about objects. Are you an object? Is there any real difference between activities like work and play? How about work and meditation? How about activity and stillness? What is the difference? What is the same? Who am I? What is the nature of my existence? All right. And now a short chant. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om. Peace, peace, peace. All right. Any comments?
The teaching and Nome's talk is just pure inspiration.
Yes.
So we lost a little bit of it, Richard. We lost a minute of it or so.
Okay. I am sorry about that. I'll fix it post-production in the video then. I don't know what happened.
Okay.
I also noticed that I had been muted at that time. Must have been me since there's nobody else in front of this computer, but
I think one of us is almost out of bandwidth or something.
Uh-huh.
I think it's you. Mine says it's okay.
Okay.
Anyway.
But, no matter what bandwidth our computer has, I would notice that consciousness has better bandwidth. Again,
Good one.
consciousness, one of the things that I've checked in my looking at consciousness and noticing its bandwidth is things like moving my eyes rapidly in a mirror and just checking to see if I can keep up with the visual bit stream. And consciousness works, it seems like, every time. No matter how fast I try to go, consciousness is always there and is faster. And it may be a funny thing to check, but I've checked.
Well, I notice it's always there. Yeah, it's always there. And even if I've gone on a little tour, I come back, it's there.
Right, and it's there during your tour.
Yes, it is.
And when I'm feeling crummy, my consciousness is so acute that it notices every bit of the feeling crummy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've noticed that also when I have a drink in the evening, that the consciousness notices the effects of the alcohol on my mind.
It doesn't miss anything.
Yeah, but the consciousness isn't drunk when my mind is.
Yeah. Well, thank God. We'll all be in big trouble. Yeah. There was a piece that the fellow that does the Taoist, Greg.
Oh, Jason Gregory?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And he had a little piece on Ramana when Ramana got cancer, and the doctor wanted to do the surgery and give him anesthesia, which of course he said, no, please don't do that. And the doctor, of course, was very concerned, but completely astounded that, Ramana seemed to have no reaction of pain or so. Part of me, I'm not, whether his body must have felt it, just like the body feels if it's had a drink or it's sick. At least mine does. And but to be so completely immersed in consciousness that it makes no difference if the body is in pain or not, is really awe-inspiring for me.
Yes.
Yes, Ramana, when asked about that, his disciples were concerned about it, and they asked, "Didn't you feel pain?" And he said, "The body felt pain.
Yeah.
Am I the body?"
Yes.
Well,
I feel like a real little leaguer next to that.
Yeah, we all are.
Yes. I felt the same thing when I was talking to Nome about his Parkinson's, and we ended up laughing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we have couple of extraordinary examples to guide us. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what was so funny with Nome, of course, is all the people who are with Nome care about him and don't want him to be sick and have all of this emotion about it. Yeah. But Nome doesn't have any of that. And, what was funny was the contrast between his attitude and our attitude.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm going to the dentist next week. We'll see how I do.
Wow, good luck with that.
That's right. I've used the dentist's office as a regular meditation site for 20 years.
Yeah.
My dentist in California used to laugh at me.
Well, yeah. So,
I was also doing it when I was at the cardiologist table and they were inserting a stent in my arm, and the doctor afterwards said he had never had a patient whose arm was so relaxed.
mhm. Yeah. Well, we'll just talk. Yeah, I shall carry on.
That's right. And in some funny ways, I hope the dentist works on you with one of those old slow speed drills that rattles in your head, and then that'll test how good your meditation
Yeah, for
is.
sure. No, I have meditated at the dentist's, and so long as they're being nice to me, I'm okay with meditating.
Anyway, good luck at that. And well, thank you all for joining me, and we'll see you next week. Namaste.
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 Namaste.